Welcome back to the podcast where normal places turn into unexpected stories. I'm Aarav.
And I'm Myra. And today, we're not talking about dreams, success, or motivation.
We're talking about a hotel.
Because sometimes, a hotel teaches you more about life than your own home.
When we first walked into this hotel, carrying our bags and the quiet hope that 2 nights away from routine would somehow untangle the tired thoughts sitting heavy in our minds, I realized how easily we believe that changing a place will automatically change how we feel inside.
Yes, and what surprised me the most was how the lobby looked calm and beautiful from a distance, yet felt crowded and impatient once we stood there waiting, surrounded by people who all wanted comfort immediately, as if the hotel owed them peace just because they paid for a room.
I kept watching the receptionist smile again and again, even while being blamed for things she clearly did not create. And in that moment I understood that hotels are not just buildings. They are emotional dumping grounds where exhausted people unload their frustration.
And when they told us there was a problem with our booking, I felt anger rise inside me so fast that it scared me, because I noticed how quickly a small inconvenience can turn a calm person into someone they don't even recognize.
That was the moment I chose silence instead of shouting, not because I was weak, but because I suddenly understood that patience in places like this is not kindness. It is strategy, and anger only slows solutions.
When we finally entered the room and I saw the smaller space, the blocked window, and the tired bed that looked like it had carried too many restless bodies before us, I felt disappointed not in the hotel, but in myself for believing pictures instead of reality.
I sat on the edge of the bed and felt how slightly uncomfortable it was, and that discomfort made me think about how often we chase comfort in life, only to realize that no place can protect us from our own expectations.
It hurt a little, realizing that this room was not designed to make us happy, but only to host us temporarily, and suddenly it felt exactly like life, where nothing stays long enough to solve your problems for you.
As the night grew darker and the noise from other rooms grew louder, with doors slamming and laughter echoing through the hallway, I noticed how silence becomes priceless only when it is taken away.
I remember lying awake, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how I complain at home when things are too quiet, yet here I was wishing for the same silence I once ignored, realizing how ungrateful comfort can make us.
That night taught me that hotels don't promise rest. They reveal how badly we need it, and how little control we actually have once we step into shared spaces with strangers carrying their own chaos.
When morning arrived and we held warm cups of coffee with tired eyes and calmer minds, I felt something strange, because even though the hotel failed to give me comfort, it succeeded in slowing me down enough to make me think.
And while sitting there, I realized that the purpose of travel is not escape, but observation. Because the moment you stop expecting perfection, every imperfect place starts teaching you something valuable.
This hotel taught me that anger never improves service, expectations quietly destroy experiences, and patience often solves problems before words ever can.
And it taught me that comfort is temporary, rooms change, people come and go, but the way we react in uncomfortable situations stays with us far longer than any hotel memory.
So if you're listening to this while staying in a hotel, frustrated because something is not perfect, maybe pause for a moment and ask yourself what this place is trying to teach you instead of what it failed to give you.
Because sometimes the most ordinary rooms hold the most honest lessons, if we're quiet enough to listen.
The next morning, when we decided to go down for breakfast hoping that at least food would repair the disappointment left behind by the room and the sleepless night, I remember telling myself very quietly that maybe this was where the hotel would finally redeem itself.
I remember that too, because I noticed how your tone carried hope mixed with caution. as if you already knew that expecting too much again would only hurt more, yet you still wanted to believe that something simple like breakfast could improve the entire experience.
When we entered the dining area and saw people standing with plates in their hands, waiting silently while staff moved slowly and avoided eye contact, I felt a strange discomfort, because hunger makes people impatient and impatience exposes who they really are.
And as I watched one guest complain loudly about the delay, speaking to the staff as if they were invisible machines instead of humans, I felt embarrassed not for the hotel, but for how easily people forget kindness the moment they feel inconvenienced.
When our food finally arrived cold and incomplete, missing things clearly mentioned on the menu, I felt irritation rising again, but this time it wasn't about the food, it was about how many small disappointments can pile up before your patience starts breaking.
I remember looking at your face and realizing that hotels don't just test comfort, they test relationships, because shared frustration either brings people closer or silently pushes them apart.
I wanted to complain immediately, not because I wanted better food, but because I wanted acknowledgement. I wanted someone to say, "Yes, we see you," and "Yes, you matter," which is something most people are actually asking for when they complain.
And that's when I gently stopped you, not to silence you, but to ask whether this problem deserved our peace, because sometimes winning an argument costs more energy than accepting imperfection.
I won't lie, that moment hurt a little, because it felt like you were choosing calm over standing up for us, and for a second I questioned whether silence always equals strength.
I understand that, because silence can look like surrender, but what I was trying to protect was not the hotel's reputation. It was our mood, our morning, and the fragile calm we had just started rebuilding.
As we sat there eating quietly, I realized something uncomfortable, which was that my anger wasn't really about the hotel anymore, it was about how tired I was of always adjusting, always understanding, always letting things go.
And hearing that made me realize that places like hotels often become emotional triggers, because when you're away from home, every inconvenience feels personal, as if life itself is testing how much more you can handle.
When I noticed the staff member who served us rubbing her forehead when she thought no one was looking, her face carrying exhaustion instead of carelessness, something shifted inside me, because I suddenly saw the other side of the story.
That moment stayed with me too, because it reminded me that behind every slow service is a human being juggling pressure, complaints, long hours, and very little appreciation.
And that's when it hit me that hotels are strange places where everyone arrives tired, everyone expects relief, and very few people remember to be gentle.
Exactly. And that's why kindness in such places feels rare but powerful, because it breaks a cycle that most people blindly continue.
When we returned to the room and closed the door behind us, the silence felt heavier than before, not peaceful, but reflective, as if the room itself was forcing us to sit with our thoughts instead of escaping them.
I remember standing near the window, looking at the same wall outside, and realizing how symbolic it was, because sometimes life puts you in places where the view doesn't change until you do.
That sentence stayed in my mind longer than I expected, because it made me understand that this hotel was never meant to impress us, it was meant to slow us down enough to notice how we react under discomfort.
This part of the journey taught me that service failures reveal character, not just of the people providing the service, but of the people receiving it.
And it taught me that not every battle deserves a reaction, not every mistake deserves anger, and not every inconvenience deserves control over your emotions. I think the biggest lesson from this hotel so far is that comfort is fragile, patience is expensive, and empathy is optional, which is why so few people choose it.
And maybe the real purpose of staying in places like this is not rest, but reflection, because when you're stripped of comfort, you're left face to face with yourself.
And so, Perhaps the greatest lesson of room 417, the late-night hums, the slow breakfast, and all the small imperfections that we once wished weren't there, is that life's value doesn't lie in what is easy, comfortable, or perfect, but in how we endure, perceive, and transform the ordinary, frustrating, and imperfect moments into understanding, connection, and growth that we carry far beyond the walls of any hotel.
And that, perhaps, is why we travel, why we choose to step out of our homes and into strange spaces where we have no control, because it is only when we are uncomfortable, challenged, and stripped of predictability that we truly see ourselves. We truly learn patience, and we finally understand that peace is not given. It is created within, no matter the room, the bed, the staff, or the view outside the window. Mira.
So if you take anything from this story, whether you are staying in a 5-star hotel, a budget inn, or simply facing a small inconvenience in life, remember that every imperfection, every small frustration, and every minor failure is an opportunity to practice patience, to grow in empathy, and to recognize that the world will rarely meet your expectations, but your ability to respond with understanding is what shapes the quality of your journey far more than anything else.
And with that, we leave room 417 behind, not with resentment or regret, but with gratitude for its lessons, and a quiet hope that we carry forward into life, into relationships, and into every imperfect day. The knowledge that comfort is temporary, challenges are inevitable, and the way we handle both is what truly defines who we are.